Alright, this is going to be my review of Resident Evil Code Veronica. Some background. I'm a huge fan of Resident Evil. For anybody who knows me, they'll know that. I've played every single main series game, completed most of them, have several full playthroughs actually on my channel. RE5, RE6, I have a partial one of RE0. The only ones I hadn't completed was this one, meaning Code Veronica, 0, Revelations 1 and 2, as of earlier this year. I've actually completed Revelations 1 and 2 now, have full playthroughs of those as well. 0 I still haven't completed, and Code Veronica I just recently completed, hence this review. I would have done a full playthrough on this game, except I didn't record it, because I did it on PlayStation 3. I looked for it on PS4, didn't find it. Now, it came to my attention and was shown directly to me that it is in fact on PS4, but by the time I realized that and found it out, it was too late. In case you're, if you're familiar with the game, then the part where I found out that it is definitively on PS4 was the part where you get the dragonfly object to attach the dragonfly wings to. If you're unfamiliar with the game, at that point all you gotta do is punch in a code, fight the final boss, watch a couple cutscenes, and you're done with the game. So, kind of redundancy to sit there and start over, if you get my drift there. So, as I review this game, I'm going to be focusing, I'm going to be comparing it to other Resident Evil games, notably the original ones, nothing like the fixed camera angle ones is what I mean, notably. Now, just for reference too, because there are remakes and original some of these games, when I say RE1, RE2, RE3, I'm referring to the new versions, meaning the 2002 version of RE1, the 2019 and 2020, the reimaginings of them. When I say Resi 1, Resi 2, Resi 3, I'm referring to the original games from the PS1 era, just so that's clear right from the get-go. So, as part of this review, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to focus on, and I mentioned that because I'm going to be comparing it, like I said. So anyway, as far as this review goes, I'm going to focus first on the negatives, as to which there are two. The negatives are, well, in the first place, so one of the negatives is that the atmosphere. The atmosphere meaning, you know, the environment, the music, the tone, all that deal. And the second negative kind of coincides directly with this one, but I wanted to give it its own thing anyway. So I view this, I'll focus on the environment first. I view this mostly as like the original ones, the older ones, were often in condensed buildings, like the Spencer Mansion, which was very claustrophobic. And the RPD, whether it's the RPD from Resi 2 or RE2, they're both, you know, they all take place indoors. RE3 doesn't even really count. Resi 3 did take place outdoors, but it was small and narrow most of the time, so it still felt claustrophobic. Plus you had the nemesis chasing you down everywhere you went. So the tension was still there. This game takes, I'm going to say half this game takes place indoors, half it takes place outdoors. The indoor portions are, well, let's start with, okay, the outdoor portions, there's not much atmosphere to them. And to be totally honest, there's not much fear to them. Because it's just out in the open, and there's just a few zombies here and there, and maybe some other monsters. There's not that much to the outdoors. The atmosphere is kind of lacking in the outdoors. I can't deny it. It is. And there's the music. Now this is also where the indoors, they win in the more claustrophobic sense because they have that going for it. Nice design, layouts, and all that. Although there's no good atmosphere. One thing about the older games is that they all had a good atmosphere. This game doesn't for the most part. Even when this game does have music playing, it's not that great. So for instance, like when you in Resi 2, when you first go into the RPD, you'll hear this. And the theme continues on from there. But it gives you a huge sense of just a nice place to start out with, where you can go and explore and start the game. And then another track from RE2, or Resi 2 I should say, you also have this one, which is also a fantastic theme in and of itself. This one. That soundtrack is also fantastic because it showcases, it gives you the eerie feeling in the fact that you've pushed through the RPD, you've pushed through the sewers, now you know that you're pushing towards the end, but you're not quite sure what to find there just yet, and it gives you an entire fantastic sense of dread, but at the same time also relief, which I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's what it gives you. And then you also have and then when you're just roaming around the place, like I said earlier, Resi 3 has a lot of outdoors, but even when you're outdoors, you get stuff like this. Which is, once again, fantastic. And I will say this, while the game does have its own music, of course, most of the music in Code Veronica just doesn't really give you the same feeling. Now there was one notable exception, and this one was, at least as far as I'm concerned, superb. And I will go ahead and play that one even right now as well, because that one's fantastic, which is this one. That one's also fantastic. You know, there is also another good one too, which is the save room theme. And that one's fantastic. Then again, when it comes to Resident Evil games that have a save room theme, pretty much all of them are fantastic. Yeah, pretty much all of them are, and this one's no exception. So the music there is mostly lacking, but it has some good charms here and there. That's as far as the environment goes. It's a bit lacking to me. The atmosphere. Now, I do hope, and you know, let me go over the negative, the second negative. It is also kind of the tone too, but it feels too anime. That's what I'll use as anime, particularly the cutscenes and the voice acting. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then watch some of the cutscenes, like even just a cutscene movie. The way Alfred Ashford laughs is ridiculous. Well, same thing with Albert Wesker. Just a lot of it is honestly just straight ridiculous. I can't even deny that. And you know, like, it's funny to me. They're making a Resident Evil 4 remake and skipping Code Veronica. And yet, Resident Evil 4 is like the one Resident Evil game that I'm pretty damn sure nobody wants a remake for. Like, most people love that game, and I'll admit it's a good game. It just has outdated controls. But I don't think you need to remake the entire game just to rectify that one issue. I feel like Code Veronica needs a remake because this game is actually pretty damn good. The only issue is that it's so anime in tone that when there are moments, even ones that are supposed to be serious, I simply cannot take it seriously. I really can't. It's too anime, it's too ridiculous. So they need to make a remake but give it a more serious tone perhaps. I would be all for a remake of this game. I would definitely record a playthrough. I would have recorded a playthrough on this one. Except I couldn't. Well, I could, but I didn't know I could. And also, some people would have called me cheap anyway, and I'll say right now why. Because I encountered the same issue. Because, okay, the reason why I didn't finish this game, I've played this game before, but I didn't finish it. I didn't finish it because The health items you have during boss fights, actually this is another negative now that I think about it. The health items you have during boss fights are not enough. The balance between health and guns and all that in your inventory, like you can't beat some major bosses with it. It's ridiculous. And so I just lost at boss fights. I couldn't beat the game. You want to know why I actually started it over in the first place to finish it? I'll be totally honest with you. I actually cheated. I really did. You want to know why? Because there's a glitch to get an infinite healing item of your choice. I just chose the regular standard green herb. But you want to know why I did that? Because it meant that I could have only one slot available for health and be good to go. And then the other slots I could use for firepower. So honestly, I cheated. I'll admit that straight up. Call me, call me whatever name in the book you want, whatever pejorative word. But that's what happened. So sue me. So who knows? Maybe it wouldn't have been any good to watch anyway because I used help. Now, granted, I didn't use any outside help for any of the other stuff, but I did. But I did use that. Now, this game follows the same formula, though, which is amazing, as the other games. Here's how I'm going to get on the neutral or good stuff. Starting with Resident Evil 4, they became more linear and just less puzzles and really just kind of a shoot 'em up. Not shoot 'em up, but just more focused on shooting. Actually, 6 pretty much is a shoot 'em up. The original games were not like that, and this one is no exception. Where they have fantastic music, except for this one for the most part, and they have great atmospheres, great places to be. Now, one thing this one excels at that the other ones do too is that this whole game is basically one giant puzzle, because that's honestly what these games were. Whether it's a Spencer Mansion, or the RPD, or Raccoon City, or Rockford Island, or the Antarctic base, what they all have in common is they're all gigantic puzzles where you need one item to do one thing, another item to do another thing, and then as you're dealing with those things, there are puzzles in between those item puzzles. And this game is no different. But that's fine because that's part of what makes the thing work. You have a good horror atmosphere, you have intimidating enemies, you have a nice soundtrack to boost the whole thing, and then you have puzzles to go with. That's the classic Resident Evil formula. And when I say classic, I do mean classic because they threw that out the window in Resident Evil 4. Which is why I say that Resident Evil 4 is not a good Resident Evil game, but it is a good game in general. That's why I say that. Because Resident Evil 4 is the first one where they threw the whole formula out the window. And this one does one even better too, because this game uses fixed camera angles. Now, one thing to do, any game that uses fixed camera angles needs tank controls. Any of them that need that. I'm telling you that right now. Because otherwise the controls just become cumbersome. And yes, I've tried it the other way around because one remake has the option for to use like a traditional kind of control where the controls are oriented towards the camera, and it's dumb. You have to reorient yourself all the time. Because here's the difference between tank controls if you don't know. Tank controls is that your movement is centered on the character, whereas normally it's centered on the camera, and some people just can't handle it for some reason. This game is no different. It has camera angles and all that deal, but it takes place in a full 3D environment, so there's no lag in between switching of the different camera angles, which is, honestly, it's so amazing. And like if I go back to the other games now, it's gonna feel weird getting that like split-second lag every time I go anywhere and change the camera angle. And there are times where like the camera angle just follows you too. Like there's a whole room with a fountain in it where there's no camera cuts at all. It just follows you around the whole time. It's actually pretty cool. It's in the Antarctic base with Chris Redfield. So that's some of the positives here. Claire Redfield is fantastic, voiced by Alison Court, which I love. And then you got Chris Redfield, who honestly I'm used to him being voiced by Roger Craig Smith, but he wasn't in this game. But that's fine because this game came out in 2000, so. And Craig Smith didn't jump on the Resident Evil band board until, what, 2007 or 8? I think 8, because he was into Generation. So, the regular enemies are fine, for the most part. Honestly, the items are actually probably the best part of this game. I mean, the key items, the whole puzzle part of it. Because, like, the thing about it is, Resi 2 has simple puzzles. It does. Resi 3, the items themselves are easy to place around, but the puzzles that go into them are very difficult for Resi 3. 1 Remake is kind of more so like where the placing items is more difficult, but then the puzzles are kind of easier. It's kind of like that too, although it's very well done. This game is the same way as 1 Remake, wherein the puzzles are very easy, but finding out where the items go in that whole deal is ridiculous, dude. Like there were some times I got lost in the sauce, and I had to try to look for files and all that. There was one. I'll even mention there was one part. 2 parts where I got really. It was kind of the same item actually. One of them is the octagon valve. It took me a long time. I had to go back and look through places. It took me a long time to realize how to turn the regular valve into the octagon valve. And then when you get the octagon valve and you get the socket, it took me a while to realize that you have to connect the socket to the octagon valve in order to empty that pool in order to get, I think it was a sterile room key. So like, that stuff was fantastic on it. Is there anything else to do other than that? There was some negatives, some positives. I've compared it. I'm honestly just thinking to myself, what else I can even say here? Oh yeah, there was another aspect of it to it. The bosses. So, and Steve. Steve needs a rework. I'll tell you, if they ever remake this game, Steve needs a rework. The bosses also need some work. Some of them are just ridiculous in a bad way, because you got Nosferatu. I didn't like Nosferatu, man. I didn't really like him at all. He was easy. He was the one-time thing. He was pretty easy, but I didn't like him. But some of the bosses in this game are just dumb. Like the one with Claire Redfield on the plane with Steve when you go into the cargo hold place. And he's the big tyrant dude. My God. Okay, I'll tell you what, man. I used my infinite healing green herb on that fight, and I'll tell you what, dude. He was just smacking me around constantly. Like, I don't think I could have possibly beaten him without the infinite healing item. You see, like that boss in particular, if I didn't have that infinite green herb, I would have never passed that boss. And like I said, that's the reason why I didn't pass in the first place, because I got stuck on, the boss. I would have never been that tyrant, ever. You know what? That actually brings me to another positive in and of itself. In certain places, and these are actually the only places, in certain places when you die or get a game over, you don't have to go back to the main menu anymore. It gives you a retry, which is awesome. I think I had 7 retries according to the results screen, and it was honestly awesome, dude. Because like I'm used to older games or Resident Evil games. No matter where you are, even if you're in the middle of a boss fight, you lose, you go back to the main menu, start from where you were. This game, oh my God, that retry is such a quality of life improvement. I'll tell you what, man. That retry. One of my biggest criticisms in this game, though, is the boss fights. Okay, like even the other negatives, like the atmosphere and the anime stuff, you can play the game just fine, even with all that stuff there. And the soundtrack may not bother others as much as it bothered me personally. But the bosses part, that's a huge gameplay element that can really break the game for some people. And it really irks me when there's a game where it's a good game, but people can't get far enough or beat the damn thing because of the plain and simple fact that they get stuck on one particular part. Whether it's a certain level, certain boss fight, this game was a boss ridiculous. I'll give you 2 more examples. The first 2, actually 3 examples. The first 2 driver games are both like that. The very first driver game level is stupidly difficult to pass. It really is. A lot of people didn't even get past it. It took me 2 years to get past it. I'll admit that right now. It took me 2 years to pass that one level. I didn't consistently try the whole 2 years, but I tried a lot, and then like a year later I tried again, a year later I tried again. Driver 2 is the same way. There's a certain level in that game where you're having to chase down a plane or something, and then it's easy to lose that mission. I've never beaten Driver 2 because of that mission. I never been able to get past it, and it's a notoriously difficult mission. The third game, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the mission is supply lines. the thing with, I think his name was Zero in San Fierro, I think, with the plane, the little RC plane. A lot of people didn't even pass that mission. There's a lot of people who didn't pass that mission, or at least it took them a long time, like a year or two, to pass that mission. And another one is the Mafia ambulances mission from Los Venturas. A lot of people weren't able to pass that mission very well. The boss fights in this game are the exact same way. That turn of the cargo plane. Nosferatu as well. Nosferatu. Think about Nosferatu. Okay, so Nosferatu is a different breed. Let me go over to, Nosferatu is a different breed. He's not necessarily difficult because of just him as a boss fight himself. The reason why he's so difficult is because, actually, I had to reload my game because of this. After the Nosferatu boss fight, you switch to playing as Chris. And whatever items you have on Claire, you do not get to keep with you. The only items you have with Chris are the items that you put in the item box as Claire. And so you want to put as many items in the item box as you can, because you want Chris to be able to play the game normally. Well, guess what? That means that you have to decide between what firepower to put in the item box. So, so you got what? You got a handgun. Actually, you don't have the magnum at that point. So you get the handgun, you get the bow gun, you get the grenade launcher, and that's it. So now Chris starts out with his own handgun, so that's fine. But so it's like, do you want to stick with the bow gun? Do you want to stick with the grenade launcher? I'll tell you what I did. What I did was I stuck. Oh yeah, by the way, I want to mention this too. I mostly use the healing item on on the boss fights. And like, I'll tell you what, dude, when I was fighting Nosferatu, of course I was using it. But when I was fighting Nosferatu, I put away the grenade launcher for Chris. I used the bow gun and I used the handgun. I had the bow gun powder, which is the explosive rounds and the regular stuff. I used all the explosive rounds. Oh, you get the sniper rifle too. I forgot about the sniper rifle too. I used all the sniper rifle. I used all the bow gun explosive bullets, rounds, arrows, whatever. I used all of the regular rounds as well for the bow gun, all of them. And then I also started using my handgun. Guess what, dude? Oh yeah. Actually, no. That fight. Let me correct myself real quick. That fight, I did not use the infinite healing herb because I kept it in the item box so that way Chris could pick it up. So I was using regular stuff. What I bring? I brought 2 healing items. I brought a combined red and green herb, and I brought first aid spray. I'll tell you what. When I got done with Nosferatu, I had plenty of handgun ammo left, I'll admit that, but all of my bowgun ammo was gone. It used a lot. I'm going to say probably used 50 rounds in my handgun, and my health was in danger. So it only took me 1 try though. Well, technically 2 because I restarted, but that's not because I lost the boss fight. But it only took me 1 try. But yeah, dude. So like, the Nosferatu boss fight is kind of ridiculous because like, you're discouraged from bringing items and firepower with you because you want Chris to have it next time. And the game doesn't even tell you about that. Like, it doesn't tell you. Like, that's how come I had to restart in the first place. The final boss is also ridiculously stupid, dude. The final boss fight is with this queen from Alexi Ashford. You play with Chris. Okay, first off, the first thing it does is it tries to swipe out Claire and knock her off a guardrail. She dies. The game gives you no time to react, dude. You have like 2 seconds. I straight up lost the first time around just because she knocked Claire off the thing before I had time to react. So thank goodness once again for the retry option, because man, that would have pissed me off. And then here's another thing too. Once you get that point, there's a second stage of fighting her where she has acid spews, she has this tentacle thing that she slaps on the ground, she has bugs hurting you. I use my infinite healing herb at that part. I'll tell you what, man, if I didn't have the infinite healing herb part of the thing, I would not have been able to pass that boss mission because it was just ridiculously tough. Honestly, I kept going into orange, caution, and danger. I kept having to use that herb again and again and again and again. And there's another third stage where she's flying around like an insect, and then you have to sit there and hit her with this like grenade, this like launcher thing that has infinite ammo. But dude, hitting this, it's ridiculous, dude. She, like, you'll shoot it, and I saw it multiple times where like the round went through her, but the game counted it as a dodge, so she got like invincibility frames, I guess. But it took me what, 3 full minutes just to hit that thing, or 2 minutes just to hit it. It was ridiculous. And after that, there's a cool cutscene fight between Wesker and Chris. And the game just ends abruptly. The game ends like every other Resident, the older ones all do. It explodes and then the people fly away. That's how these older ones always end. They fly away on some sort of aircraft, be it helicopter or plane, from where they were at, and then the place blows up behind them. This game is the same way. So boss fights are ridiculous. That's actually the biggest negative. Let's see. I've already listed a lot of positives. Playing with Claire is a positive. Steve, there's nothing really to say on Steve. I mean, the main thing about Steve is ruined. One, because of his voice acting, which is just atrocious. My God. And then, I mean, I think the only voice acting most of it was really atrocious. The only voice acting that was actually pretty good was Chris and Claire. That's it. Everybody else is pretty much garbage. Wesker was alright when he was just talking. When he laughed, it was just ridiculous. And the Ashford twins were just redonkulous. My goodness. And Steve. Steve's personality was ruined by his voice actor mostly. And then there's two important moments with him that are both ruined by the game's own anime atmosphere. One is when he has to shoot his own dad, who turned into a zombie. That was ruined by the game's own atmosphere. It's too anime. I can't take it seriously. I've mentioned this once already. And then the other point of it was when Steve turns into a monster and eventually dies and says, Claire, I'm glad I met you. I love you, the whole deal. That part of it is supposed to be a touching moment. I couldn't even take it seriously because it bothers me when I'm supposed to be taking moments seriously in a game and I can't take it seriously. That really does bother me. It's like, bro, it's like, man, just well, anyway. So I think I've pretty much already done everything. I'm not sure if there's much else left to do on this. It's already going about a half hour now, almost. I think about a half hour review is good enough. I didn't record it, so I figured I'd at least do a review for it. I was also going to do it with The Last of Us Part 2. Haven't even completed Last of Us Part 2 yet. I'm on the part. If you haven't played it, then skip this. But I'm at the part where you're playing as Abby, and I just have no desire to play as Abby. I don't want to play as Abby. But yeah, this review is going on about long enough, I think. I've compared it enough to other games. Really only actually Resi 2 and Resi 3. I'll leave, I'm about to end this review, but I'll leave off on this. You know what? I have one last small criticism, and this bothered me when I first started playing it a lot. So, I had played Resi 2 and Resi 3, both, because they both had reimaginings come out, so I played the original games for both. And they both have a similar control scheme. Circle is inventory, L2 is map, square is run, X is interact and, shoot and all that. And this game just cuts all that by making X the run button, square the shoot and interact button. It makes start the inventory button. I don't like how they mixed up the controls. I wish they would have kept it the way it was from Resi 2 and Resi 3. That really, really bothered me. I can't tell you how much it bothered me when I first started this again. Like, I even tried to look up the controls, see if I could change it. I couldn't change it. It upset me so bad. So I want to criticize the controls. If you have controls that have been going one way, don't change them all of a sudden. That's what Gears of War did. Their first 3 games had one control scheme, and then for Judgment they had to sit there and change it to make it more like Call of Duty, as if Call of Duty is a good game. Some of the older ones are good, but the new ones, I mean, come on, Activision. Oh yeah, I'll leave off on this one thing. I hope they make a Code Veronica remake. I really do. I hope. Now, I'm sure. Now, there's some things I'm sure of. I'm sure that Steve will be improved. I'm sure that the atmosphere, if they do make one, I'm pretty sure the atmosphere will be improved. All that. Voicing a little bit better. The moments that are supposed to be serious will be able to take seriously. But I have two things that I hope they do. If they make a remake of this, Code Veronica, I hope they do what, as far as like the soundtrack and atmosphere goes, I hope they do more along the lines of what RE3 did, which is because RE3 actually used some of the original soundtrack at least, well, a remix version of it. Because one thing about RE2, it used the same general layout, especially with the RPD, as Resi 2, but it carried none of the original atmosphere. So I would, so you know what? I don't even mind if they change some of the atmosphere. 'Cause like I said, this atmosphere, this game's atmosphere isn't the best. But I like them to improve upon the atmosphere. But one thing I do not, I say again, do not want to happen is another RE3 where they just cut so much content and just that reimagining is an embarrassment, straight up. There's no other way to put it. So I hope, if anything, it's closer to RE2. And this game doesn't even have a zapping system in it, really. So they don't have to worry about the zapping system. So if they could just give a remake for Code Veronica a similar treatment to RE2, I'll be happy. Although actually you put a soundtrack in it. Like, my God. Like, RE2, that's one of your biggest issues. You don't have a soundtrack. The original soundtrack swap helped some, but not all the way, because the original soundtrack was meant for Resi 2. So if you put an RE2, it kind of works in some places, kind of not in others. I mean, come on, bro. The main place it works for is the save room in the front hall, honestly, and also the theme I played earlier, the marshalling yard one. That one also works for it. Anyway, though, so that's my hopes for the remake of this game. If they make one, I hope they make one. They need to make one. Anyway, though, that's about it for me here. So, yeah, I've pretty much already covered all my bases. Is there anything else I'm missing? Hang on. Oh, yeah, also fix the boss fights if they make a remake for this. If they make a remake for this, oh, I'm definitely going to do a playthrough on it. Well, last note. This isn't about Code Veronica. Last note. I hope they make a remake for this game. They're making a remake for 4. Resident Evil 8 Village is coming out. Netflix is releasing a live-action movie or TV, no, a live-action TV show. It's also releasing a CG TV show or movie. I think it's supposed to be a TV show, the two. Another live-action movie is going to be happening. Tell you what, man, it's a good time to be a Resident Evil fan. It really is, and I'm one of them. So it's a good day and age. The only blunder of the past few years has been RE3, and that was very recent. And I hope Capcom has learned their lesson on that, because I don't know if Capcom thinks this way, but if they make a lot of money but the people don't like it, it's a failure. Yeah, that's about it. So I won't ramble on any further. This has been my review for Resident Evil Code Veronica. I wish it would have been a full playthrough, but it wasn't, so this is kind of the best I can do. Have a nice day. See you down the road, I suppose.